welcome to this morning's Coffee at 11 on a beautiful spring day. A bit chilly out there this morning, but it's going to be warm in here in the cafe because I've got my very special guest and good friend of mine, Emma Darcy of Emma D Marketing, to have a chat with. Emma, please say hi and show us your mug.
Hi everyone, good morning. This is great, really loving this. Thank you very much for the invite, Colin, appreciate it.
Looking forward to hearing all about your journey. In the meantime, just to kickstart, I'll let the viewers know. Name Emma Darcy, business name Emma D Marketing. What does your business do, Emma? It does marketing consultancy, digital and social media marketing. It's an agency, and digital marketing and social media training. How long established? 9 years. How many employees? Myself with contractors. Emma is a digital and social media marketing consultant and trainer, business owner, lecturer in digital and social media marketing at the University of Limerick. Very nice. Founder of the Marketing Success Summit, an online learning summit with acclaimed international marketing speakers, and also founder of the Winners Enclosure, an online mastermind. Emma is a marketing leader in a global sense, and she refers to marketing without borders. And the thing that people would not pick up from Emma, those of us who know her, is she's actually an introvert. Interesting.
I'll go now. The introvert in me makes me go now.
Emma Darcy, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure having you on. Please, in your words, bring us up to the point 9 years ago when you started your business. Tell us all about Emma Darcy before Emma D Marketing.
Sure. Well, I kind of did things in reverse, as you do. In that when I left school, I took a year out, a famous year out before I would go to college. I went working with horses, who I always loved horses, and I went working in the Curragh of Kildare. So worked for Sheikh Mohammed in Kildang and Stud, worked for a variety of different trainers, really enjoyed it. However, the lifestyle wouldn't be amazing in that you've long hours and everything. I mean, that's fine, you enjoy it. But I always felt I wanted more, if that makes sense, or I wasn't reaching my potential. So I did actually get a job as a lab technician in a veterinary practice. I worked as a veterinary nurse for a couple of years. But while I was doing that, I actually did a City and Guilds marketing certificate in Dublin. Because obviously based in Kildare, you would be quite near Dublin. So I used to drive up every night or 2 or 3 nights a week and do courses on marketing. So I was always interested in marketing and business. I also worked a lot over the years actually selling cattle, selling horses, selling drugs. Sounds terrible, but when I was in the veterinary practice, of course, you're buying the drugs for the practice, and you're also obviously selling them to different people and whatnot, obviously within the context of the veterinary practice and whatnot as well. I decided though I wanted a real job, because sometimes when you're working in an industry such as horses, it's considered not to be a real job, or people ask you when you're going to get one, because it's kind of something you have a passion for but not necessarily seen as a long-term career. And so I decided to get a real job, and Lidl Ireland had come to Newbridge. Their headquarters is based in Newbridge, where I was based. And so I went for an interview with them. And funny enough, I worked on a Saturday morning with the veterinary practice, and my interview was on a Saturday, and I actually broke down on the motorway as I did, because I didn't have very much money, so my car wasn't very good. So I broke down in the fast lane and managed to get into the hard shoulder. And I had to ring them and tell them that, I was going to be late because I'd broken down. And I think they didn't believe me because, it just thought it was another kind of a gag. So I just said to the guy laughingly, we said, well, because he kept saying, when can you get there? When can you get there? And I just said, well, look, I'm going to be here for the next hour for sure, or half an hour at least. You can come down here if you want, jokingly. And so he did. So he came down in his Audi A8, as you do, and pulled into the side of the hard shoulder just before the toll bridge. This is before the toll bridge is the way it is now, where you had to drive through the tolls. Pulled in, I had to get out, and I remember there was all these lorries whizzing by. I shake hands on the side of the road as the lorries are whizzing by. And I get into his car, his beautiful Audi A8, and we had an interview. And it was funny because he said, well, this is the strangest interview I've ever conducted. And I said, well, you won't forget me anyway, which is true. So I got the job. And considering I hadn't been to university at that point, it was kind of interesting. And one of the reasons I got it was because I was doing a lot of sales work, but equally I spoke German from school. I did it for my Leaving Cert. So I worked with them in sales, and for the first year, I then got promoted to their buying department. And if anyone, if you're familiar with Lidl, they have massive buying power, so you learn a lot. I worked with logistics. I was still doing a lot of part-time work with horses, riding out, but also a lot of sales. So kind of throughout my whole career, or my whole life, I've been buying and selling. And I suppose it's only when you look back, you kind of think, oh yeah, I actually have been doing a lot of buying and selling, and of random things sometimes, because you don't always think of selling or buying cattle or horses, or and how do you do that, or what's your brand awareness like, you know, when you're selling something like that. And a lot of it comes down to trust and building relationships. And I realized when I look back that that's what I've been doing over quite a number of years, is you become kind of relatively well known within an industry and people actually come to you and ask for your advice. And over the years I've been developing that. I suppose when I was then working for Lidl, it's one of those companies that you work a lot and you work very hard, and that's great, you get wonderful experience, but it's quite draining because you're working sometimes from 7 in the morning till 11 o'clock at night and all the rest of it. So I did actually go and travel around Australia, New Zealand, you know, all those nice places for a year. That was fantastic. So I did things like whitewater rafting, you know, as you do. Was going to do the bungee jump, but chickened out, I have to admit, at the last minute. But, you know, had a wonderful experience whereby I'd gone from really stressful lifestyle to where will we go today? You know, looking at the Lonely Planet book and figuring out, yeah, will we eat today? Of course, well, you're going to eat, but when, you know, so basically you have no ties and it's lovely, the weather is beautiful and the rest of it. Came back to Ireland. I always had wanted to own my own business, had looked to go into business bringing wine into Ireland, because in the meantime, when I had been working whatnot, I'd done some kind of wine tasting courses and I had done certificates in wine tasting in Dublin and all the rest of it, which was interesting, I have to say. And so I decided to go into business with 2 friends. And I suppose if anybody's done this, that poses its own issues, in that if you've been friends first and then you go to create a business together, and it's nothing against the friends, or, you know, but that whole dynamic changes. So we had created the business. I actually went to Kentucky to work with horses, because you get a lot of very good money when you're working at a sales at the sales with the horses. So you're basically selling $1 million horses and whatnot and all the rest of it. So I went to the States to make some good money, and then the idea was to come back and launch the business. But while I was gone, different things happened that I suppose wasn't 100% happy with. So before it all kicked off, before any money changed hands or anything like that, we'd created the business, created the bank account with nothing in it and all the rest of it. But I decided, well, you know what, I'm not really happy the way this is going forward. And so I decided at that point to pull back for the sake of the relationship of the friendship, if you like. And so we're still really good friends and all the rest of it. I was disappointed and whatnot, but I felt it was the right thing to do. And in the long term, they did start the business themselves and it worked for a while, but long term it didn't. And look, that's by the by, but it was a good experience overall, as in you learn a lot from it. I then ended up working for a wholesaler business in Nina, where I'm from. That was good, but you ever get the feeling where nothing is quite, you're not really enjoying it, or it's not really where you want to be? And I got frustrated because it was a family business and they were great, but also they were very slow to make decisions. And I'd come from a very high impact kind of very, you know, from Lidl Ireland, decisions were made very quickly. You had a lot of responsibility, you know, all the rest of it. And then to go to a family business, of course, it was completely different. So I took, this in the middle of the boom times, so you're making really good money, all the rest of it. And I decided to go back to college, as you do in the middle of a boom time. And of course, and we're just talking before some of you came on there, like in terms of being creative or making decisions where people aren't, you know, as in it's not the run of the mill of what you do. So, and of course, my parents, my friends, why? You've got a really good job. You know, what on earth would you do? Or why would you do this? But, and I just knew it was the right thing. But of course, it looked absolutely like lunacy, because at the time, everyone was buying not one house, but 2 houses and holiday houses in Spain, and, you know, lifestyles were really good. And I had just come back from skiing trips myself and, you know, all that kind of thing. But I just did not feel I was going the right direction. So in the middle of the boom time, I went back to college, and the typical question at the time was, and how long is that course going to be? And when I said 4 years, you know, I mean, gosh, I was going to hobble out of the university, you would think, you know. But anyway, I went back to college, and of course, the downturn happened in the middle, because I went back in 2006. The downturn was in 2008, and it was really interesting because, you know, friends used to invite me out for coffee or drinks and whatnot, and they keep saying to me, it's not expensive, while I was in college. And of course, their idea of what wasn't expensive and mine was completely different, you know, because they're on champagne, or maybe 1 bottle of champagne, and I'm like barely on the beer, whatever the case is. So it was interesting then when the downturn happened, in that they suddenly recognized, I suppose they, you know, you've got to change your whole lifestyle and all the rest of it, because people lost their jobs and all the rest of it. And they suddenly recognized kind of, I suppose, where I was coming from, which was interesting.
Perhaps they recognized your reality for the first.
Yes.
And yeah. Does this bring us, is this where M&D marketing begins?
Yes, this is where M&D marketing begins.
Bring us from where M&D marketing began right up until it fell off a cliff. Well, not necessarily M&D marketing, but that the world fell off a cliff. Will you bring us there?
Sure. I suppose, you know, I did my degree. I had my daughter in the 4th year, as you do as well. Again, everyone said to me, give up college. And I decided, well, it took me 10 years to go back, so I'm not doing that. And, you know, I did the degree. In the middle of that, actually, my baby was 4 months old, split up with my partner, which was all lovely, as you do. And then I, you know, Olivia was 10 months older, no, not even 9 months or something, and I went straight into a master's. A marketing master's. So I did that. But from the marketing master's, this is where the genesis of my business came in, that I always wanted to work for myself. And of course, when you do a master's, a lot of the jobs you could potentially get are in Dublin or London or New York or whatever the case is. And I suppose the two things came together in that I wanted to work for myself, and I had a small baby, so it's very expensive obviously to live in different cities, and I didn't want to move. I wanted a kind of country lifestyle. So interesting enough, there was a position came up for a couple of the students, including me, 5 of us, for the summer, where we helped the university to market the business. So ironically, you spend so much time learning from them how to market within the, you know, courses, and then they ask you back. So anyway, because I was older, mature student, I was asked to help them with their MBA course in particular. And at the time, there was actually an embargo on hiring within the university and a lot of public sector at the time. So literally my first client was the University of Limerick. So they literally said to me, I did the 3-month stint of work experience, if you will, helping them. And I got on really well with quite a number of them. They could see I had good ideas. And literally I handed up my thesis at the end of September, and I started working contract work with them in October. And I had no website. At the time, there was no Facebook pages. I had nothing.
I must interrupt, because we had a guest on the other day, and the word that we use in Dublin, I'm from the north side in Dublin, and the word we use for people like that who land on their feet is jammy. Right?
Okay, well, I was jammy then. I'll admit it.
So back to jammy, Emma.
Yeah, back to jammy. And I mean, it was. I mean, look, I was in the right place at the right time. And funny enough, because I mentioned I helped with the MBA, and the director of the MBA program, he actually became the interim dean. So if you understand the university structure, the dean of the business school, or the dean of any of the, you know, the science department, whatever, is the head honcho, if you like, of the business school. It's a great, well, you know, it's a very high profile job to have. So he actually became the interim dean. And of course, we had this great relationship. I just really got on well with him. We'd bounce ideas, whatever. So I was really lucky, or jammy, as you say, Colm, in that he then brought me on board for multiple projects, and he was the dean, so he had the last say. So I was incredibly lucky, you know. Plus, a lot of my lecturers knew me, so they would ring me and say, hey, Emma, we need to promote. Because, of course, at the time, because of the downturn, the universities were under massive pressure to keep all the students coming in, and all the other universities were the same. So anyway, they were literally my first client. So I pretty much landed on my feet. I was jammy, you know, and it was wonderful because I knew the run of the place. I knew what to do and all the rest of it. So yeah, they were literally and that was the genesis of, you know, and it was funny because I had no business name. There was just me. It was just, yeah, just do the work.
I love it, but there's been so much in there. I'm going to pause you for a second. There's been so much in there in those last few minutes, because I do want to I want you to take us from your first client to COVID in the next few minutes. But tons of stuff in there. I was making notes to beat the band. You mentioned brand and trust.
Yes. And
thank you for entrusting your brand with my brand today and coming on like this, because that's what it's all about. You know, we are entrusting each other to each other. You mentioned the horses. You mentioned working in the States with the horses, and Liam Burke was one of our guests earlier in the week, and he did a lot of work in the States with horses.
Okay, right.
You mentioned bungee jumping. You never did bungee jumping. Nisha Ahern was on the other day. She did 12 bungee jumps.
Oh, wow.
She was working in an Irish bar, I think in Greece, and anybody who arrived over, they all sent her to Nisha saying, oh, she'll bring you bungee jumping, and she didn't even like it, but she went to it. So,
gosh, wow.
The business with friends, you know, really insightful there, and really brave of you to get to the, you know, the 11th hour and pull back for all the right reasons. So hats off to you there. And Emma, I really appreciate your honesty here, because that's what this is about. It's about giving other people perspectives. They've all got their own fears and elations and whatnot going on. And it's about just hearing from real people, their journey, and we'll all take something different from it. And the other thing that I want to go back to the jammy thing, that's a term of endearment, right? Well, it's jealousy really, but a term of endearment. Anyway, but that said, you know, you don't get jammy if you don't have the skill set to back it up, if that makes sense. You know, there was no way the dean would have kept you on and given you the first gig and all that stuff, except that you were creative and hardworking and all of those things in the first instance. So Emma, it's wonderful so far, right? So take us from your first client, UL, right through to COVID, please.
Sure. Okay, so I did a lot of work with UL for quite a number of years, which was great until obviously the upturn came. So they took some of it in-house, which I was a bit disappointed about. But anyway, you know, I had a wonderful relationship, and I suppose they were my launching pad as well. At the moment, like, they bring me back for certain things, which is great. So at the moment, I'm actually lecturing in there on the course that I would have done 9 years ago. So that's really great. And, you know, it was wonderful to get that phone call, you know, where you were the first person we thought of, because basically the professor has gone out on sabbatical and he's writing his next book. And so I was the obvious person, if you like, to take over the course on digital marketing, which was great. I suppose that brings, you know, in terms of UL and University of Limerick giving me opportunities, which is wonderful to see where you're going as a student and you learn so much. And as you rightly say, Colin, I developed quite a lot of relationships, as in, you know, insightful professional relationships. And I'll just give you a little insight. Actually, when I started actually with them, I had this surreal moment whereby I was in this boardroom, this beautiful boardroom in UL one day, quite soon after I just handed up my thesis, and I was, I suppose, a month into working with them, and there was, I don't know, 20 people or something at the table from all the different departments, and I was speaking, and I suddenly realized I'd been speaking for about 5 minutes, because even though I'm an introvert, like I said at the start, when it comes to marketing, I can't shut up, as you can tell. So so here I was talking and talking and talking, and I suddenly realized you couldn't hear a pin drop, and I was like, you know, where you have this moment where you're talking and you think, oh wow, they're really listening to what I'm saying. How did I go from student to, you know, advisor, if you like, so quickly, and that they genuinely are listening? So that's kind of one thing. And that was great, obviously, and that held. And again, that's developing of the trust, or I became the go-to person for multiple aspects of marketing at the time, strategically, but also I would have done Google Ads and whatnot. And I suppose then that allowed me then to, funny enough, I was a couple of months in business then at that point, and I joined a local networking group, Women in Business group, and they were asking me to go forward for awards, but bearing in mind I still didn't have the website because I was so busy. I still didn't have any of the things you're supposed to have. And here they were asking me to go for awards, and I just thought, well, I have obviously my bank account and whatever set up, but I hadn't done a lot of what I'd wanted to do, and because I just hadn't had the time, and which is good, obviously. And they said, no, in fairness, the numbers were down, let's be honest. They needed people to go forward for the awards. So anyway, I went forward, and the interesting thing was, it was before selfies were a thing, and I had nobody to take a picture of me, because I had no pictures of myself for ages, and I took 52 pictures, and I'm terrible for blinking in photographs, so I'd only one that I didn't blink in. So I sent that into the local paper, as you do, hoping that they weren't going to print. And actually I was quite sure in my own head that they wouldn't print it, that they just write my little blurb. But the interesting thing actually was, even my family, who at that point were like, what are you doing? Like, why are you working for yourself? Why don't you have this job? And they're still saying that, but however. But when they saw it in the newspapers, they were like, wow. And that's a really great article, Emma. And I said, well, I actually wrote it myself, which I had done, you know. And of course the picture, and they said, you look amazing. And it's really interesting, whereby you had taken this picture in a hurry, like click, click, click. Oh, I blinked, darn, take another one. And you're in this rush because you have so much other things to do, and it's kind of like a by the way. And then everyone else is like, wow, Emma, this is amazing. And you're kind of wondering, I haven't changed. My business hasn't changed, but people's perceptions, people's understanding of it has suddenly changed. And I suppose this is where PR or marketing is so important, in that even though we're in a very digital world, I shared it out, of course, onto Facebook and LinkedIn and all the rest of it at the time. And of course, people are amazed, you know, and it just goes to show people's perception of you. You become elevated in their mind. And this is, I suppose, in terms of risk, there is a risk associated with working somebody in marketing, or working with somebody that's an accountant, or these types of services. Is how do you know they're going to do a good job? And I suppose if an article is written about you in a newspaper, this is where, I suppose, the kudos is given out to you, and that trust is engendered, and people reach out to speak to you. So I suppose, to bring you up to COVID, then I've worked with multiple agencies because of that. Then I got work with local enterprise boards. I got work with local networking groups in Killaloo. Actually, I did a lot of work over there. And then it was just a lot of networking, which is not digital, of course, which is interesting. And then, of course, in 2015, I actually did a lot of online courses because I'm always trying to upskill myself. And I've connected with a lot of people in New York and around the world. And that was and through those networking opportunities, then I decided to run a mastermind in 2016 and all online on Zoom. And also I did a summit whereby I had about 40 different speakers on and all about marketing. These were all free and you could just log in and you could watch. But I suppose what it did was it worked wonders for my profile. So people contacted me on the back of all of these things that I was doing online. And again, it's all about perception and brand and awareness. And it's that consistency of marketing and the perception of you being the expert in your area. And people would reach out. So I suppose I did all those, and that kind of really, in the meantime, I've been working with small to medium businesses, you know, all that sort of thing. And that's wonderful. So, and that really brings me up to COVID. And I suppose, you know, from the picture from today actually was from a conference in 2017. And actually I was about 8 months pregnant at the time, which I didn't tell them. The stand actually stops you seeing that. But I didn't tell them in case they didn't want me to be there. But anyway, I was. And you can see the result of the pregnancy is here beside me. Apologies.
Perfect.
But, you know, this brings me right up to COVID. And I suppose a lot of it has been, you know, stuff that I've done offline that is brought on online in terms of photographs, summits, you know, all that sort of thing.
Wonderful. May I comment on some of that? It's fascinating. Fascinating story on the edge of my seat here. But a handful of things that jumped out. You took 52 pictures to get the one, and it was all done in a rush to get the one that would eventually go to the newspaper. Lottie Hearn is on the call here. Lottie, you're very welcome. And Lottie is
Hi, Lottie.
partner in the TEDx Dunleary program. And
that's right.
I was honoured to be a TEDx speaker there. Lottie's making some signals there. We'll talk to you in a second, Lottie. And anyway, but I took 14 videos. You had to get a 60-second video as part of the application, and there were 14 before it went in. So I do think resilience and stickability and keep on going is an important part. We spoke yesterday evening, you and I, briefly about, just because we were doing a tech check, and you mentioned a couple of things that came up just now. You mentioned your friends now are seeing you in Zoom, albeit you're having a glass of wine together or whatever on Zoom.
Yes.
But they're sort of seeing you in a different light and saying, oh, so this is what you do, Emma. This is it, really. And it reminded me of what you said about the newspaper. You know, when they saw you in the paper, all of a sudden, maybe you do have a real job. You know, maybe there's something actually going on. Hats off to you. So it's great. The other thing you said yesterday evening was with COVID, and we get into COVID now, there's no 9 to 5 anymore. Right, everybody's appreciation is different. You know, it's changed, and they're seeing people like you, people like me, perhaps people who are out there trying something new because of COVID, and they're beginning to connect the dots and make a bit of sense of it. So, and you also said, and we'll go here now in a second if you don't mind. You sort of said COVID is the real leveler. COVID is the real leveler, in that it's forced us all online. If we want to do anything into the future, we got to consider online even more than we've ever done. So will you take us through where you are and where M&D marketing is now in COVID? And then in a while we talk about the world post-COVID.
Well, like I was saying to Colin, you know, last night, you know, it has occurred to me over the last couple of weeks that COVID is leveling the playing field for everyone, be it that you're a retailer or you're working in retail at the checkouts, or I think we're suddenly reassessing who's important or the perception of importance within society. And I was just talking to Colin about, I'm in a book club, and normally we meet up and we go to each other's houses and all the rest, but we actually had a Zoom call. And like Colin was saying, you know, they were like, oh, wow, Emma, this is what you do. Oh, right. So it's actually really good. I didn't know this existed. Wow. And we can all say hi, and we can share our screens, and we can hear each other, and, you know, and it's just amazing where we had a great, I mean, we didn't stop until 2 o'clock in the morning or something like that. We had a great chat and all the rest of it. But suddenly it was like I was being elevated in their thought processes, and before I was just this random person nearly arriving up to the school in kind of, because, you know, I will admit I've tracksuit bottoms on, but I've made an effort up here, kind of the newsreader type of look. But, you know, I suppose people's idea of what you do, and I suppose, so this is really, COVID has leveled the playing field as far as I can see in terms of people and opportunities. And the one thing that actually sticks out in my mind is you know, going back to everything that I've done, and even other people, and I'm sure on the call, is that courage. The courage to take, like at that time where I decided to go back to college when there was a boom and I was considered to be nuts. And afterwards, it was funny, all the people that considered to be nuts congratulated me on getting my results. And when I did my master's, they congratulated me again. So bearing in mind, I did 5 years, not just 4 years, I did 5 years, wow. So that was okay. And then when you start working for yourself, I mean, you're a bit mad again. Gosh, she's gone off the radar again. And then because you're in the newspapers, oh, that's okay because, well, she's in the newspaper, so it must be going okay. So it's interesting then when people see, what you call it, they see Zoom and they're like, oh, suddenly like everything's okay because now they see what you're doing. They understand what you're doing. And interesting, like, and I just remember being an introvert a little bit, is that since I had my second daughter, I've kind of gone off the radar a little bit, being that introvert, gone back into myself a little bit and kind of reassessed what am I doing, reassessed. I've done a lot of stuff with small to medium businesses. I've really enjoyed it, but I'm wanting to change things. And I was just talking to Colin last night, and what COVID is doing for me, and I think for a lot of people and a lot of my friends online, is it's allowing us to recalibrate. It's allowing us to, or giving us permission to think, right, okay, well, this is what I've done until now. What is my vision? To reassess, what has my vision been up until now? And am I sticking to that? Am I on the right path? And if I'm not, then how do I get off the path that I've been on, and how do I change it? So for example, as you can see, I have a little girl, and she's 2.5, so she's going to preschool in September. So hopefully with all this COVID and whatnot, they will be going to school in September. But in my head, what I'm doing is, and I haven't done for a while, is I'm doing extra trainings online to get myself ready to launch. Like, so for example, I have a podcast coming out. I have extra trainings coming out, and I'm like, while I am an agency, I want to be a bigger agency. I want to have employees, which up until now, and really it was a lifestyle choice in that I have 2 children and I'm a single parent. So I didn't, what I liken it to, I feel like I'm a hen sitting on the eggs for the last 3 years or something like that. It sounds mad, but anyway. So, and part of me is, you know, looking at everybody else going around and doing really exciting things, but I understand that I have to let my eggs or my children grow to a certain extent, so that they've got to a certain point where I then can go out a little bit more. And I suppose I'm, and in a way, I'm giving myself permission as well. There is an aspect of that, but also, and I suppose this is where technology is wonderful, like the likes of Zoom, the likes of this opportunity to speak to Colin and to speak to all of you here this morning, is that it allows us to meet and connect in a way that we wouldn't be able to do so without it. And I think there's huge opportunities there with artificial intelligence, virtual reality, you know, audio. I'm a massive believer. So if any of you are looking for tips going forward in terms of what you should be looking at, YouTube, I've a YouTube channel. You all should have a YouTube channel, a podcast, or at least audio clips, SoundCloud, Anchor. They're free resources you can use. And if you think about it, think of Alexa. You know, the way at the moment you can say, hi Alexa, hi Siri, what's the weather today? Or, you know, you see all those ads. But Google announced last year that they're going to put a lot more emphasis on audio search. So therefore, as business owners, that's what we should be looking at, not just SEO, not just content marketing and social media marketing, is looking at what's coming down the line. And I suppose this is what I notice from myself, and I think other entrepreneurs, with a quick chat with Kira and whatnot there at the start, is innovation and creativity. And what I find is, and I don't know if the rest of you find this, but I find that I'm 3 and 5 years ahead of everyone else typically, where they've just got onto Facebook and LinkedIn and whatever it is, and I'm on virtual reality now, and I'm on audio, and my mind has gone there. And I think that's important, because you have to deal with the present, but you also think of what's the possibilities? Where can I go with this? You know, so I love when clients come to me and, you know, like, I want to do something different, and, you know, and they tell me all about what they've done up until now. And usually clients come to me that have multiple careers, if you like, and they want to make a change. They're savvy, they're smart, they know a lot about marketing and business, but they want to go into a new area or a new niche, and they know they need a little bit of help there, and they're not afraid to look for it. But also it's sometimes bringing all of together, you know, all the threads and making them work together. So for your new life, or the area that you want to go to. So I don't know if a lot of you are thinking like that, but that's what I find meeting with people, that they want to go to a new area. How do I do that? And I suppose I find I'm the enabler in that. I say, right, I'll tell you how you can do that.
Happy days. And we'll get to that in just a second, Emma. I mean, it's so rich. The amount of stuff that is coming out here today is just wonderful. So I'm not the only one busy writing notes here. Again, can I reflect back on a couple of things you said, words that jumped out at me? Courage, big word. Recalibrate, big word. permission, giving ourselves permission at this time. COVID, one of the big gifts of COVID is it's given us all permission
Yes.
to do nothing if we choose. However, a lot of us, you included, me included, are using this time to upskill and reskill and reimagine a future. So we've got two choices. We can, lie in bed all day if we choose to, because COVID can allow us to do that, or we can, reimagine. Liam Burke said, let's not waste a good pandemic. We're not going to see another one, right? So included in that is gardening, included in that is going out for a walk, included in that is riding out on the horses, okay? It's not all about work or reimagining, but it shouldn't also be all about gardening or lying on the couch, okay? Vision, you mentioned vision for the future. You shared with us there briefly, your vision for the future is beginning to percolate, beginning to grow a bigger agency with employees, something you wouldn't have considered before. And you now have the time to get your head right around that. And yes, we were talking with Kira earlier about innovation and creativity and mixing the two. So really exciting stuff, tons in there, tons in there. So will you give us your glimpse, Emma Darcy and/or Emma D Marketing's view of the world, the new world order post-COVID?
I think somebody posted there in the chat there, giving ourselves permission and allowing ourselves to be the best we can be. Actually, I quite like looking or reading about, in the Native Americans, the Indians as we call them. And I think it's about coming back home to yourself. So realizing your potential, and having the courage. So I'll bring that in to take those steps, because sometimes what can happen is, and I think, your family, and if they're not entrepreneurs around you, they mean well, but they can, you start listening to them and you limit what you feel you can do because you're listening to this sensible, or this idea of being sensible. And I suppose what I would say to people is to give yourself the permission to take those steps into the unknown, to be the best you, and I think once you're the best you, that will lend itself to having a great business and having, being great with your clients, and, because you're passionate about it. And I suppose you're always it's like being a seeker of truth, a seeker of information, a seeker of what's the best way of doing things. And I think COVID for me, and I see a lot of people doing it, is it's suddenly nearly freed us up. We have this certain freedom where before you're on this treadmill. And I was actually talking to a friend of mine last week, and she's a vet, and she's an equine vet, and obviously this is their really busy time of year with springtime and stud season and whatnot. And she said, Emma, my hours have been massively cut back. And this lady spent 10 years training to be a vet. She didn't get into college the first time with it. But anyway, so she's massively passionate about it, really loves it. But she said, I become disenchanted with it. And she said, for the first time, I actually now have the time to enjoy my job. And I just thought, wow, that's really interesting, isn't it? That COVID means that she's less clients to see, but she goes in, and now she has the time to, it's not that she wasn't doing it right before, but she now has the time to enjoy it. So there's an extra 5 minutes to chat, there's an extra, and so she's absorbed. And I think as entrepreneurs, I think we are now afforded the time to go for a walk or a cycle or get out into the fresh air that allows us to percolate and recalibrate, bringing in those words again. And I suppose sometimes you doubt what you're doing, don't you? So you get these little voices saying, oh, and on those days, then if you go for a walk or you allow yourself to do those things, the courage comes back in. I think being in nature allows that courage, because you start to go back to nature, if you like, or go back to you and not be listening to all the kind of chatter around you.
It allows time for ideas to bubble to the surface.
Yes. Yeah.
You spoke with your friend, the equine vet, and her, she obviously got into veterinary because she loved animals, and specifically horses. It sounds that way, right? And then life took over and she got very busy and began to feel disenchanted by it. A lot of teachers that I've come across over the years, I've been in school meals for the last 17 years. A lot of teachers get in, they want to save the world, right? And roll on 17, 20 years, 30 years, and
yes,
a bit of a chore at times. For now, many of them, this isn't all teachers, but they've sort of fallen out of love with the work, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And, but look, I get it, and on behalf of all of the people on the call here this morning, I knew this was going to be rich with content and information and ideas, but it's far surpassed even my wildest dreams. So thank you for that, Darcy. Before we go to Q&A, we're going to go to Q&A from the floor. So I want you, whoever wants to ask a call, wave at the camera or stick up your hand and I'll call you in a second. Before we go there, Emma, what's the one tip that you would give to your nearest and dearest? You're going to get through COVID best and come out the far end by doing blah. What's blah for you?
Blah for me is giving yourself permission to do what you would like to do. You know, and it's that simple. It sounds, you know, it's not complicated. It's just giving yourself that permission. Because I know I've stopped myself from doing things in the past. And I feel like I'm emerging now, if that sounds strange. I'm emerging now. And even it's funny because obviously as a digital marketer, I know how to work the system, if you will. And like I changed my profile picture yesterday and whatever. And I know it's funny because I'm talking to a friend of mine next week and she's a digital marketer in the UK and she's hilarious because she knows, oh, Emma's back on now. She's ready to go again, you know, just by certain things that I would do. So I think it's kind of like that. Give yourself permission and announce to the world, if you like, what you want to do or who you are and go with it, you know.
That's lovely and perfect timing. The choir in the background, perfect timing. That's just lovely, absolutely fantastic. Give yourself permission. And I liked that you changed your profile picture yesterday, which was you acknowledging to the world, but also perhaps to yourself that maybe you're ready to go again. Sounds like the first buds of spring. There's something nice.
Indeed.
Nice. Lovely. Okie dokie, we're going to go to the floor for some really hard questions, I hope. Who's got a really hard question for Emma? I'm looking at the faces here. I know they're not shy. Lottie.
Hey, Lottie.
Lovely to see you. Hey, Emma, thank you very much for sharing your story with us. Really appreciate it.
Not at all.
Top tip as a fellow live streamer, I've been for quite a while. I've noticed that Facebook are starting to kind of only really promote live shows and live videos if you use the Facebook tools. Yes. Do you know anything? Have you any latest news about that? Because I use BeLive and last week before 18,000 interactions, last week 0 viewers.
Yeah. At the end of the day, look, they want to make money. And if you're using third-party apps or, you know, software, they want to keep, it's like Google really. Google and Facebook want you to keep within the Google or the Facebook ecosystem. That's the long and short of it. Do they advertise that? No. They're like, you can use all the different parties and that's fine. But as you notice, when you use them, then you're being severely limited. So the distribution of your lives is severely limited. So what they're wanting is that you use the Facebook ecosystem and preferably you pay for a Facebook ad or ads and that you spend money with them. That's really the long and short of it. They'll say otherwise. And I suppose sometimes what happens is with the whole algorithms and whatnot, it can go like this for a month and suddenly then next month without for no apparent reason, you get more views by using BeLive or other platforms as well. So they kind of play around with this. But I suppose it comes back to who do you want your audience to be or who do you want them to see or how much do you want them to see? Sorry, I have to open up Lollipop here.
You get the lollipop sorted. Because I noticed that earlier last week before the show, Facebook Live had just switched on to, they bought VidPresso, which was the best live stream tool a couple of years ago. But I think they've now switched on with everything going on with COVID. I think they've turned on. So potentially we might see that using Facebook Live is the way to reach a Facebook friendly audience if your market is there. So yeah. I just wanted to see whether you'd heard anything new about any news.
No, like literally it's always been the news. Use Facebook Live itself and not use third-party tools. What I would suggest is use Watch Party. I've got tremendous, distribution with Watch Party because it's relatively new. So people are quite curious and also Facebook are allowing you to distribute your live. So I would do the live first and then I would do a watch party of the live. So you're kind of like getting a double whammy there. And also put it into your Facebook.
It's double work, but at least you can comment on yourself while you're doing it as well, which is great.
There's a thing called the engagement pod, which sounds really grand, but actually what it is you actually get a team of people where, like say the team here this morning and say, send them a list and say, these are all the links I would like you to like, comment and share on in the next 24 hours. And essentially that, of course, you're doing that on purpose, but it means that Facebook is picking it up that you're content is what people are looking for. And then what happens is the algorithm then, it brings you up the rankings, like there's a relevancy score there. So when they deem you as being highly relevant, it means that by default, you then your videos will be seen more and more. So I use the engagement pod idea where I literally ask people, say, hey, and do something for them or whatever the case is, and say, are you willing to be part of my team for a week or whatever the case is? And I'll send you, so make it easy for them. Send them the links. They just like, comment, share, whatever the case is. Get 10 or 15, 20 people, however many you can, and do that. And you're kind of tricking Facebook, dare I say.
and the last one then on that one, because this is a little extra sneaky one, is because we noticed in the live world that if you started putting, please comment, please share, please do this for me, Facebook didn't like that. So there's ways that you would recommend of saying to people, can you comment? Because we used to say, make a comment in the show. Facebook can't tell that yet.
Yeah, so tell me again, how does your platform, like, so what are you doing exactly? How is it, like, how are you operating it? So it's a live and you're telling people in advance to comment?
Yeah, it will be live. We normally set up the show a day or 2 days beforehand, because if it's too far out, then it just gets lost in people's minds. But with the Be Live tool, they are a preferred supplier to Facebook, but I think they're just getting lost because there's so many people now with COVID who are suddenly coming into the platform. To share their stories, which is totally understandable. But I think it's Facebook are simply trying to really push, because they spent millions on VidPresso, they're trying to, and it is a fantastic tool. So maybe it is the time for all of us to convert back to Facebook Lives, or I can use Be Live and maybe I'll do the show on Friday to YouTube instead and then watch party it.
Yes.
I love it. I love it. The interaction. Lottie Hearn, pleasure. Thank you for coming on. Very wonderful questions and great responses, Emma. Thank you. Again, we're showing, you know, the depth of knowledge that both of you have. Lottie Hearn, by the way, Confidence on Camera is her business. Check it out. Lottie, feel free to put your connection details into the chat there. And Emma will do the same for yourself. Did I see Liam Burke has a hand up for a question? I'll get you in just a second, Liam, because Princess Shelley is going to come in and just help me with this next section, if you don't mind. Princess Shelley, you are live.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm just kind of facilitating here with the lovely comments that are all coming in from everybody. Great interview, Emma.
Thank you.
Everybody's really enjoying it. Edwina, who has had to go, she's a regular listener in Cafe with Colin, and she's had to go and link with another meeting, and she said, thank you for a great interview. And before she left, she said, Emma, you're so passionate. Thank you so much for sharing your journey. She particularly liked permission to lean in and learn. So she appreciated that. Gemma also said, thank you, Emma, amazing talk, which is also great feedback. I'm sure you'll agree. Lottie said to everyone who we've just listened to there, Lottie said, give yourself the permission to do what you want to do, which I think we can all agree with. I actually made a note of that one myself. It's very valuable. Arlene has said, well done. I too went to UL, graduated in 2004 with a bachelor's in business studies, and went on to DCU for a master's. Loved UL. Wow. So I think she related to that for you, you know.
Of course.
And then finally, it's a quick question from Sandra, who is here with us today. Emma, lovely to hear your story. Being a self-employed, it can be difficult to keep up with social media and technology, and it can be so time consuming. Is there a top tip that you could share with us if we can to keep up with everything?
There's, well, firstly, I suppose going forward, I'll be sharing more tips myself. So if you want to go onto the MD marketing page, the business page, but equally the Social Media Examiner is, they have a Facebook page, but they have a blog post as well, actually, and they've got terrific blogs. So a lot of marketers actually would send in their blog posts, and they're very up to speed as to what's going on right now. And actually a lot of them have really great blog posts about how to do certain things. So if you want to do a live, or you want to do a Facebook ad, or, you know, an Instagram post, or whatever the case is, they have genuinely really, really good tips there. So that's a really good resource to go there to, is Social Media Marketing World. They have fantastic resources there, and they've like literally a mine of information. You can go into the search and you can search whatever you want and pretty much you'll find it there. But also they keep you up to date, because of course Facebook and all the digital media, they never let us know what's going on, and suddenly you find you go in there and everything has changed and you think, oh my goodness. I always think it's like Tesco's or Dunn's, and you go in there, they've moved everything, and it's kind of frustrating. But social media marketing world is definitely a really good place to go to find out, because of course the challenge is, you know, you're trying to do your work and you're trying to do everything. You can't be doing social media all the time, and the digital marketing, you have to do your work. So you can't spend an hour every day figuring, is there something new today on social media?
Maybe Emma, maybe that's why people need services like your agency can provide, perhaps. I'm just putting it out there.
Yes.
This is a great question.
Yeah. Well, it is. I mean, that's my job, is to keep you all informed, basically.
There you go. Or do it for us, perhaps, no?
Yes, yeah, that too.
Anyway. No, great question. I think it was Arlene's question, Sandra's question, I think. Yes, so thank you for that. But I also want to thank Princess Shelley. Princess Shelley came on yesterday as my guest on the show. And afterwards we had a chat. And I said, you know what would be really interesting? If you would consider coming on and sort of just facilitating parts of the show. And she said, well, let's think about it. So literally I put her on the spot there about 15 minutes ago and said, would you do this? She said, okay, let's do it. Let's do it. So thank you, Princess Shelley.
Great. That's lovely.
Liam Burke, I think you had your hand up.
Good morning, Colin. Good morning, Emma. And thank you.
Good morning, Liam.
Emma, it's amazing we've shared the same journey. I was in Kildangan as well. It's great.
Wow.
And I loved your story. Really, most of the questions that I was going to ask you have been answered.
Okay.
But what one single piece of advice would you give to a very small business owner to kickstart their business when, you know, on social media? What would you kind of advise, or what platform, or how could you, well, one single piece of advice could you give me to kickstart my business when COVID ends?
Well, I think even now before COVID ends, I think video. I think video allows and affords us an opportunity to see who the business person is, and equally you can show behind the scenes. Do you mind me asking, what is your business? Or
Yeah, tourism. I'm a driver guide.
Tourism.
Yeah, and it just stopped dead.
Oh, fantastic. Of course.
So,
well, then in terms of that, what I would say, Liam, is, I mean, you've got wonderful pictures, even if you don't have them yourself, and I'm sure you have access to our videos. I would be sharing them out on social media right now. So I'd be saying, here's the Clare Glens, or here's the, you know, the different parts that you would take people to, give them top tips. I mean, if you go to, you know, different tourist spots, what's the top tips for there? So what you're trying to do is keep yourself top of mind, so that when the COVID is over, that you're the default person to go to. Because what happens is, if you wait until COVID is over, there's such a rush on then, in terms of, and particularly people are going to feel hemmed in, you know, they're like, we can't go anywhere right now. So when it's over, it's like a free for all. Okay, I want to go here, I want to go there, and who's the best person to go? So what you're always wanting is that Liam Burke, he's the person that top of mind. And I suppose the way to become the top of mind is to be consistently marketing. And the other side of that as well is, you know, and I mentioned it a few times here, is for people to get to know, trust and like you. And in order to get to know, trust and like you, is they need to hear from you. They need to see you. They need to see, well, so you could do a video like you're doing now and say, hi, this is Liam. My business is such and such. I'd love to show you a little bit. So you could do like an intro, talk about your business, and then show them, say, clips of previous sites you've been to, or, you know, I mean, I love tourism. I come from a small village, Drumineer. It's on the lake, Lough Derg. So I'm always fascinated about getting people to particular areas, and like so I would even theme them historical, you know, for kids, for families, you know, theme it like that, so that people can easily figure out, okay, well, if I go to Liam, he'll help me with family. Because sometimes I think when I think of somebody that does tours, I'm thinking, is that just for Chinese or UK people coming in? Or like, so how can you tailor it for locals? You know, so for example, I've a huge I love history. So, and I've always been meaning to go to Newgrange. I still haven't got there. I don't know why, but anyway, I haven't got there. So if you were doing a tour to there, I'd be super interested. So I suppose, like, in understanding your market, where would people be interested in going to? Now, that mightn't be everybody's cup of tea, but like you've mentioned, you have an interest in horses. So what about organizing a trip to the National Stud, or organizing a trip to some of the stud farms around, because, you know, or something that's different, that's quirky. And what you find is you get a lot of PR out of that. And then on the back of that PR, then people will come to you and say, oh, well, if he does that, he might be able to bring us to X, Y, and Z. So even look at family outings, or, so as a family, you might be able to see your parents or whatnot recently. So could you organize like a family outing to, like, and I'm talking about like a bigger family outing of maybe 20 cousins or whatever the case is, and could you bring them somewhere that they haven't been to before? So these, like, I would actually be putting out ideas to them and saying, hey, when this is over, is this something you'd be interested in? Or I'm putting this together, keep engagement going, ask for feedback. And what I'll do is I'll actually write them all down and I'll send them on to you, Liam. Would that be okay?
Yeah, fantastic. And I've learned so much from you today. I'm just snowed under with all of your information. The one last question, and really it's for Colin. Colin, when are we going to see you at the other side of the mic? That's the question I'm going to ask Colin. I think people would love to see you.
All right, I'm looking at some. Yes, thank you for that, Liam. It's been a pleasure. No, it's all, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. I don't know. It has been asked before, but you know what? I'm enjoying this. I'm having a ball here. Like this, seriously, I get to come on with great people, really cool.
Coffee.
Stuff. Drink coffee, right? This is dream come true stuff for me. So it's just wonderful to have you all on. Right, we won't go there for now, but thank you, Liam. Folks, it's been a pleasure. We could go on all day. We really could go on all day. It's been such an interesting coffee at 11. Thank you for that, Emma, for making it so. Thank you all for being here this morning. And we're gonna give Emma the deaf community clap. Which we learned that.
Can I do that too?
Yes, you can.
That is great.
We learned that with Lottie Hearn in TEDx Dunleary, because one of the speakers on the night was a beautiful girl who was deaf, and so she signed her talk. And there were a huge number of deaf community people in the audience, so they all taught us this.
Wow.
And since we're all
amazing,
mute, it's the perfect medium to do this. Emma Darcy, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on.
Thank you.
Thank
Delighted
you
to be here.
Presence. And we wish you every success in what's coming down the track. For the rest of you, thanks very much for being here this morning, for giving us of your time. Before I let you go, tomorrow, a good friend of mine and a guy perhaps many of you will know, Eamon Smith, is going to join us tomorrow for coffee at 11. And Eamon is a life coach with a backstory that you really want to hear. But fair enough, putting you on the spot there, Eamon, but Eamon's a life coach with a backstory that you really want to hear. So look forward to seeing you here tomorrow morning for coffee at 11. In the meantime, Emma, it's been a pleasure. Namaste. Talk to you soon.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks for listening this morning. Thank you, Colin, for the opportunity.